This is the complete CV axle replacement for the left side, driver's side, for the 2023 Nissan Ariya Engage, the electric vehicle. Tools needed are a heavy rubber mallet, socket set including the 10, 13, 18, 21, and 32 millimeters or equivalent, a 600 foot-pound torque impact driver gun, metric ratchet and wrench set, and a flathead screwdriver. Safety equipment needed is the safety glasses, work gloves, cut resistant preferably, safety toed shoes or boots, long sleeve heavy shirt and pants, large rubber mat, insulated rubber gloves worn with leather outer gloves, and a face shield. Warning: working on electric vehicles exposes you to high voltage energy and electric shock hazards. Disable the high voltage system of your vehicle. See Vehicle Maintenance Manual. Wear insulated gloves and use insulated mat when reaching into areas where voltage may exist. Needed supplies will be transmission fluid for this specific vehicle and a lithium-based grease. This is the CV axle assembly that you should be working with. Again, the front driver's side, but it should be very similar for the other side, the right passenger side. Make sure your part number matches the old part or the part that you will be working with or replacing. Inspect the part that you will be putting in for any damage, any nicks, cuts, any kind of damage at all, especially the threads on the other side and the large 32 millimeter nuts. Make sure those are in good condition and they will go on the threads. Again, make sure the part number matches that side, specific side, and also make sure it is for the front side. In this case, the left front side, driver's side. Make sure these teeth are not damaged in any way on the shaft, as well as the threads. Again, if there's minor damage on those, you may be able to repair it with a file. Make sure there's no damage on the housings. Make sure the axle joints are flexible. They should be able to rotate freely, move around freely. There should not be any kind of seizing or freezing. Make sure the teeth on this shaft are not damaged at all. If there's minor damage, you may be able to use it by repairing it with a file, small, tiny file. Also, there's a split ring here. The ring should be kind of loose, but not excessively so. It should not be bent or damaged or nicked in any way. Carefully and safely lift the vehicle using the correct jack. Make sure the jack is rated for the weight of the vehicle. The vehicle weight should be known and the jack should exceed that weight. In this case, I'm using a 12-ton jack. Make sure you use the correct lift point. In this case is in the center front of the vehicle. Make sure the vehicle is balanced and is on a flat and even surface, such as a concrete pad, and not on a slope of any kind. Make sure you also chuck the vehicle tires, the rear tires in this case, so it does not move, and you do also use your parking or emergency brake. Make sure you use jacks, stand, at least 2 correctly rated jacks. Stand, make sure you use at least 2 of them. The points to place your jack stands is going to be around this area, and you can tell by it having 2 notches. Put the jack in between the 2 notches on the steel itself, on the metal. and rest the vehicle on the jack stand. Don't leave the vehicle, just lift it with the jack. Rest the vehicle on the jack stands. Same thing on the other side. There's a lift point right here in between two metal notches. Make sure you rest the vehicle on these 2 points, which are also lift points, but you can rest the vehicle on the jack stands right there. And be extremely careful, make sure the vehicle is balanced and lifted correctly. And do use at least 3 support points. In this case, I left 2 jack stands on each side, and I did leave the jack itself with slight pressure on it in the middle center lift point. Now you can go ahead and carefully remove the wheel. You're going to use a 21mm or 11/16 inch impact socket for the wheel lug nuts. This is the wheel hub exposed already with the wheel off. Go ahead and install one of the lug nuts to hold the wheel hub assembly together while you do the work. This is the shaft of the old CV axle shaft. And this is the CV transmission side, or the inner link of your CV axle assembly. This right here is a view from the bottom of the CV wheel hub side, or the outer link. Of course, this is the old part still installed. This is a 32mm wheel hub nut to be completely removed later. You must have a impact 32mm deep socket available and a 600 foot-pound plus torque impact driver, preferably. This is optional, but you may stabilize and lift the suspension slightly. Use caution as it may rotate and fall out of place. Especially if you have just a regular jack as I'm using here, you may use a lift jack which has 2 fingers on each side to stabilize that round surface, and it won't let it shift forward or backward. Go ahead and start loosening up this nut, wheel hub nuts. For that, you have to open up the punch with a steel punch as such, if you have one. This is the punch to be opened. As you see, that is placed there in that notch, so it can hold the nut in place and it won't loosen up. You open it as much as you can. Don't damage the shaft a whole lot, especially if you suspect the old part may be okay. But open it up just enough so the nut could give and begin to come out when it starts rotating. Slightly loosen the nut, but do not remove it completely. You're not yet ready to remove the part, so just loosen it up. That will prevent the wheel from rotating later on when you have this jack removed. Okay, now you can remove the bottom cover. To access the transmission side CV link, you have to remove 2 13mm bolts, 4 10mm bolts, and several plastic push-on fasteners. This is a bottom cover panel. It's made of, I believe, some sort of fabric. This is the location of the bolts. Approximate locations. These are the metal bolts. Make sure you Pay attention to this gap between the CV axle link on the transmission side. This is the old part still installed. This gap here needs to be noted. It is about a 1/4 inch or 6.35 millimeter. This is the wheel hub side. There is a 18 millimeter nut that you will have to remove with a bolt 18 millimeters as well. Remove that. That is to begin to loosen up to remove this control arm on the bottom. This is the control arm you will be removing. 18 millimeter nut removed. The wheel hub assembly control arm port. This is what I call that. It may be called another name, but this is what I'll call it here. This holds a pin that holds that control arm in place. To remove the pin from the hub, you have to pry it with a pry bar or large screwdriver, large flathead screwdriver. So open it up so you can loosen up the pressure so the pin could be released. Once you do that, start pushing down with a large pry bar on the wheel hub assembly control arm. Push down on the control arm and also push up at the same time on the wheel hub port. Make sure you don't disturb or pinch this rubber seal that's on the bottom there on the control arm itself. Push down as such. Again, using those surfaces, you are attempting to remove or push down this control arm from the wheel hub, of course. Push down, again using only metal surfaces for leverage. If you have any trouble removing this control arm from the wheel hub, you may lift up with a jack on this position here, on this point. That way you can lift the suspension and this should start to come down. You can help it come down with the pry bar as well. You may also loosen this bolt. It is a 21 millimeter bolt. This is the control arm on the inside, on the inner side. You may loosen up that bolt to help that loosen up a little bit and push down again on the metal surfaces. Watch that rubber. And that should be your control arm link removed from the wheel hub control arm port. Push it to the side. Make sure you remove the ABS sensor, which is on your wheel hub. It's on the rear side with a 10 millimeter socket for this bolt. And then make sure you stow it away from any kind of pinch point or hammering. Make sure you do not damage it. And then you are now ready to remove this large 32 millimeter wheel hub nut completely. That is the nut removed. Now remove the outer CV axle link from the wheel hub by pulling it out vigorously. You may have to wiggle it, push it left and right, up and down, and pull it straight out from the wheel hub by pushing it into the vehicle. Now it's time to remove the entire CV axle. You have to remove it from the transmission. So put an oil pan directly under the transmission link. Then remove the inner CV axle link from the transmission by prying it out, straight out, with a large pry bar or a CV axle fork. It should not be too difficult to pop this out, straight out. This is a bottom up view of the CV axle. That is the transmission side. Again, wear insulated gloves when you're doing this. There are high voltage lines nearby. Also, lay or stand on a insulated rubber mat and use a face shield when reaching into areas where voltage may exist, which is this area. And if at all possible, disable the high voltage system. Look at your vehicle's maintenance manual for that. Pry out, be gentle, and pry out straight out from the transmission. Make sure you don't put any pressure on any kind of seal, rubber seal. Put pressure for leverage on metal. That is the CV axle removed from the transmission. That's the transmission already. With the removed shaft, inspect the transmission for any seal damage. The seal is right inside of here. You may be able to feel it. And if it is damaged, nicked, cut, bulging, bent in any way, now it's time to replace that. Ensure the parts are identical once you pull the part out. Make sure the good part is identical to the old part. Make sure you match the part numbers. And also make sure you put the good part in. Make sure you mark that old part. Clean any leaked transmission fluid. You will have to replace that fluid later on. Inspect the wheel hub side. There's a ball bearing here, and the teeth on this gear insert, those not, make sure that's not damaged in any way. If it is, now's a good time to replace that. Make sure you look and inspect those two sides from several angles and feel into it. And then install the new CV axle straight into the transmission, that side first, and push it vigorously straight in until you feel and hear a snap or click. Again, look for the gap. Ensure the gap is the same as the one you saw before you removed it. Again, about 1/4 inch or 6.35 millimeters. You may have to tap here on this shaft end on the wheel hub side. On the end of the shaft, make sure you use a heavy rubber mallet and tap straight in until you hear the click or the snap, and you have the good proper gap. Once you do that, on the transmission side, move to the wheel hub side, push the CV outer axle joint into the wheel hub hole, wiggle it around to insert. Should be a bit easier than the other side. Make sure the teeth are lined up and push the shaft with the teeth straight through. This is the gap on the other side of the transmission. Make sure they match both sides. Then install the wheel hub nut, the 32 millimeter large nut. Make sure it goes in straight by hand. Don't force it at all. And then go ahead and once it's lined and you are completely sure that it is going in straight, not crooked, then go ahead and put the impact gun on it. Finish tightening it up all the way. Put the punch in it, back in it, in the nut itself, not the shaft, with a punch, with a steel punch and a heavy sledgehammer. Then go ahead and install your control arm back in the wheel hub port. Once that is installed, you should be able to work it in, wiggling it in without having to tap it. You may have to tap it with the rubber mallet on the bottom. Install the 18 millimeter bolt and nut. Then make sure that you install your ABS sensor with the 10 millimeter bolt. Make sure you tighten up this 21 millimeter bolt completely. and inspect all bolts, nuts, and connections in the area. Make sure nothing's loose, nothing's missing, nothing's out of place. Go ahead and install your wheel back. Refill any missing transmission oil. Look for the spot where you're going to be refilling that. Make sure you use the correct transmission oil type or fluid, and carefully lower the vehicle to the ground and test drive it if possible.